Tools, what are we talking about today, bro?
Pyramid schemes.
Inside jokes. Inside jokes. Yo, that really needs to be an episode though.
Yeah.
The Herbalife. For reasons that we're not going to mention right now. Maybe you will. Like it's actually kind of convenient to what we're speaking about.
Okay.
This whole
In what way?
Do me Sequel.
Oh, okay.
Now we can use his name as a hashtag.
Put his name in the title.
But we're discussing women because it's Women's Month, and more specifically the state of women in South Africa, and then we'll touch on the globe, the rest of the world as well, but specifically in South Africa, mainly because it's Enlightened Women's Month. And one thing or a message that I want to get across, firstly, is these type of chats shouldn't only happen when it's Women's Month. You know what I'm saying? I've been preaching this message that we should continue having these conversations until the issues that women face are solved. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much what we're discussing in a nutshell. That's why we thought that these two guests would be perfect, because they have very different perspectives that they both have to offer that I think would be really interesting.
Yeah. And like you were bringing up the points about not only discussing these things in 1 month, they need to be discussed until these problems end, right? Yeah, I think with the goal of today's discussions, like Thulie and I obviously have a limited perspective being men, that's why we definitely wanted to get you guys on the podcast to get it from your perspective. But then I feel like you guys would also have a lot of things or suggestions that you could give to us as men to be able to help be a part of the solution to these problems. And that's kind of the whole point of this podcast, is to not just talk about these things, but to find solutions.
Yeah.
And I think each of us need to start with ourselves. So Thulie and I are starting with ourselves today. And that's why we're here. We're here to hear you guys out and then also see what we can do as men, figure out how we can be a part of this, a part of the solutions to the problems that we're going to speak about today. So yeah, I know Thulie had some talking topics there that he wanted to jump in on. I don't know if you want to start off with those, or if you guys, I don't know, do you guys have any stories about what it's like to be in South Africa and be a female in South Africa nowadays? I know that.
Hold on, one thing.
Sorry.
Can we just preface the conversation by just giving a third-party definition of what gender-based violence is? Because I feel like that's going to be a huge portion of what we're going to speak about. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so over here, gender-based violence is any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women. This includes threats of violence, y'all know how to say this word? Coercion. Coercion. I was testing you, I knew that. Or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or private. Can we agree that that's an okay definition?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's just missing the inclusion of other gender identities or non-gender, because gender-based violence is also it's also focused on the fact that I'm being attacked based on my identity or sexuality as well. And in South Africa in particular, we do have high rates of violence towards queer bodies. And it stems from that idea of patriarchy as well, that if you are lesbian or you're gay, you're therefore seen as weak, and therefore I have to assert my dominance and aggression to you through violence. So I think with gender-based violence, yes, there is that focus particularly on gender. That's why I prefer to use the word I wouldn't even use the word femicide as well, because then there's that implication or that language that it's again towards females. But I think also the inclusion of queer bodies needs to be in that definition.
Okay. So gender-based violence based on your gender, does that go both ways? Like obviously I know that men being violent towards women is definitely a huge problem, but does it go the other way as well? Or does it just go one way? Because what you're saying is because also I'm just trying to get all this terminology through my head, right? Because you were mentioning queer bodies, right?
Yeah.
But that in my mind, that is excluded from gender, right? Gender is a physical thing, and then sexuality is within your mind.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a bit tricky. It's a bit touchy.
I think so.
I don't know
The
if you could
definition
clear
that
up
I
for me.
have of gender-based violence, when I look at official websites, the United Nations, is that it's that act of physical violence according to your gender identity. Also, according to how you I think when I say identity, it means also in terms of how you identify. So the violence you receive physically, violently, emotionally, mentally, based on how you identify. So then, surely you have people who don't identify as either female or male and still receive that violence. Are they excluded from gender-based violence? I think that's what I was trying to say, that the definition needs to be a little bit more inclusive of the fact that there are people who don't identify who receive that violence. In South Africa, it's a reality. We've seen violence against lesbians, we've seen violence against queer bodies. So is that then, do they then have to be categorized as something else?
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. What is the points of this categorizing? Because in my mind, it's like violence against anyone is bad,
Yeah.
So I don't know, what do you guys feel like is the points of categorizing it as gender-based violence?
That's a good question.
No answers.
I mean, I've been answering, so I'm curious to know what everyone else thinks.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe is there a specific reason? Okay, maybe it's because I think it could be to identify the people that need to be held responsible, maybe. And also to identify that there are a certain group of people that, because obviously violence against anyone is bad, but what we're starting to see in reality is that there's a certain group of people that have been more affected by
Right.
violence than others, and it's mostly
Yeah.
women and children.
Yeah.
And the perpetrators of that are mostly men, if you look at it on average, right? So maybe that's the purpose of separating it.
I think also we need to be mindful that, the language is so important here. Sorry, my academic brain is just when you're always analyzing text and process tracing things, the implications that language can have in terms of sustaining the violence is super important. So when you use things like violence against women, it's not necessarily taking the fact that it's men that are perpetrating this violence. You're making it seem like this violence is a ghost that happens to women randomly, but we know that it's men that do it.
Right.
When you use language like there's a war against women, women are at a war, it's but are we fighting though? Because if you actually look at the technical definition of war, it's combatants fighting each other. And I'm sure I didn't remember saying I want to be at war with men. Yeah. So I think when we also maybe tools can check at the definition of what femicide is, right? Okay. Because I think there it's just it's a connotation of genocide. So you're basically killing women based on the fact that they're women. And I think that's what we've got into in South Africa. Women and children are dying at the hands of men. So it can't be violence against women, making it seem like it's a third party ghost coming in and killing women. It's not. You can't say there's a war against women because we didn't declare a war. So the question I want to ask is what did we do to men to receive this violence?
Yeah. The whole reason behind this being the case is something that's often discussed. And I think identifying the reason is very important, because that's how you start to figure out ways to eliminate the problem, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys feel is the reasons? I feel like there's a problem with the culture in South Africa in terms of the male culture.
I was just about to say that. Wherever culture is most preeminent in a society, there seems to be a large concentration of violence towards women. This is very prevalent in South Africa, but just anywhere where, culture is almost the main component of that society. You know what I'm saying? So it largely stems from that. And because culture is a very old thing, the reason why culture exists is because it takes all these ideals from way back in the day, during the times where women didn't even have any rights, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For example, the whole thing of lobola, I'll make an example. This whole thing of pretty much purchasing or owning the rights of another human being, a woman, you know what I'm saying? It kind of has dudes feeling that, once they have made this purchase, that they can be okay, you know what? I own her now. And you hear such arguments why did you hit her? I paid for her, so she's my property. You hear people saying crazy stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? So I just feel culture is a huge reason.
Can I one-up you there?
Go ahead.
I feel that culture is a subsection of patriarchy. Patriarchy, in a sense, is a social system that says men can benefit from this power, and so they can perceive the other, being women, in any other way, do what they want. But I also feel that patriarchy, or rather masculinity, is a subset of culture. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's one thing that's causing all of this violence. I definitely think that if you look at masculinity, I think that men are having a crisis in masculinity. There's an issue there where men are trying to have difficulty in understanding, how am I meant to be a real man? Because there's so many preconceived notions of like, a real man's not meant to cry, a real man's meant to assert his dominance if he's being challenged. And the only way they know how to do that is through violence. And we can see this through pre-primary school. I remember I was always being hit by boys and I was told, no, it's because he likes you. So just accept it, as a way to control me not fighting back. So I think there's definitely this thing that men are told from a very young age that this is who you're meant to be as a man. And if you're not like this, then you're deemed as other. And deemed as others, therefore, feminine and weak, and so many connotations that come with that. So I feel there's an identity crisis that is going on with men in terms of masculinity. And I think there needs to be more work in terms of how we reshape positive masculinity, and in that you can allow boys to feel vulnerable, you can allow boys to cry, and that they shouldn't always assert their dominance through rage and violence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that's... Because I'm just trying to relate what you're saying to my personal experience, right? So just to give you a bit of insight, I'm an only child. My dad passed away when I was younger. So I was basically essentially raised by my mom. And I get what you're saying. You're talking about the masculine culture, or what it is to be a man, right? And I feel like I have a very unique perspective on that, because I didn't have a father in my life who brought me up. I was brought up by my mother.
Right.
And because of that, I do get what you're saying. There's a lot of men out there that would view me as less of a man because of the way that I have been raised, and how for me, it's okay to cry. For me, it's like, I don't need to be the big man, I don't need to, the way that I define being a man is that you are, that's actually, how do you define that,
And I think that's something that men generally need to discuss amongst themselves, because you'll see there'll be different varying views based on personal backgrounds, right? So you'll find that usually one will be like, my father figure would tell me that being a man means I have to always be strong and never cry. But then you have another perspective like Josh, where he's like, I was raised by my mom, so honestly, truly, I'm proud of the man that I am today. And that's how I identify as being a man. I think it's so important that men define that for themselves, and not us telling them how to be men. Because I personally can tell you, you know what, you need to be a better man. You need to be a better gent. So stop beating me. Stop harassing me. Start sending more gifts and e-wallets, because I love those. I think it's really important that men need to define that for themselves. So just like, in the queer community, they claim certain words for themselves. I think men need to redefine masculinity for themselves, and not always leave it to pop culture to define that. It's so, so important, because when I think of patriarchy, and especially when I think about masculinity, toxic masculinity, men don't have much of free will. From the moment you're born and you're already given a color of saying, this is blue, and with blue, there are already preconceived notions that you have to be an engineer, you have to be strong, you have to be this, you have to be served, you have to be dominant. There's not much room for you to decide who you want to be.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure to succeed.
There's a lot of pressure on you to be that. And when you aren't that, a lot of people will look at you and be like, you're not a real man.
Exactly.
And that's not necessarily the case. I think we're the ones who actually decide what it means to be a real man. And I think it's not even just us. I think also us as a society make these decisions as well. You are bringing up the valid points, and men need to have the conversation and define amongst ourselves. But I think it's also more than that. I feel like it's up, I do feel like women also do have a level of responsibility in that. And I feel like, I don't know, you can tell me if this is faulty. Hey, please tell me if this is faulty. Because I feel like what happens a lot of the time is you'll get a lot of women out there that will be with a man who's abusive, but then they'll stay with him. Like, is that do you view that as like a responsibility of the woman to leave, or do you view that as them being a victim to his abuse?
Yeah, I think.
No, yeah, it's definitely the woman's responsibility to decide this is not what I want. I don't deserve this, and I deserve better.
But I also, so I look at the psychology of it as well, in that so when we think of physical abuse, you know, people assume that, okay, if I just hit Thulie, I'm abusing him, but there's some form of power that goes into that, right? And I think when we look at victims of abuse, we tend to see that actually this victim is being dependent on their perpetrator, and the perpetrator tends to have this notion that if you leave me, you're literally going to be nothing without me. You're not going to have any forms of support. You're going to be alone. So there's also a form of isolation that happens with the victim. The victim feels alone. The victim feels like they can't reach out to anyone. And let's also take the fact that when it comes to rape and abuse culture in this country, usually when a woman comes out to say, this has happened to me, people tend to be like, why are you always lying? You know, that's just the first clapback that someone receives. And they see that through the multiple stories that other brave women do when they come out with their stories. So there is a level of power that I think people tend to underestimate in relationships. There's always this like alpha thing that comes in where if I abuse you, it's not as easy as me just packing up my bags and leaving. I've now created this relationship with you where I am dependent on you. And sometimes we also have this notion where if you're abusing me, it's like, oh, you're showing me a different form of love. There's something that I did wrong, so you're just trying to discipline me so that I can be better for you. And that's problematic because we're not then teaching our young girls in particular that there's self-worth in that. Yeah. And I always just say, always ask yourself the type of love you envision for yourself. And if you ask your younger self, like, was that the type of love I wanted for myself? I'm pretty sure you would say, no, I wouldn't want to be abused. I wouldn't want to be someone who degrades me to the point where I physically and emotionally and mentally cannot cope. That's not the type of love we deserve. So I think there's definitely a thing where I hear you that there is a responsibility on the victim, but we need to understand that there is power that the perpetrator uses in trying to control the victim to stay. And statistically, they say it takes 7 to 10 times for a victim to leave their perpetrator. Yeah. And usually by maybe the third or fourth time, they end up dead.
Sure.
You know? So it's tough. It's not as easy as just leaving.
Yeah, and you're also fearing your life. I mean, when you're making that decision of do I stay or not, you have to, I feel like a lot of women have to incorporate the fact that if they leave, there's a possibility that some sort of implication in terms of them losing their life is also at play and at stake, you know? Yeah. And that also can make it very difficult to leave because it's fear, right? You have to overcome that fear, and that makes it very tough. Yeah, I don't know. This is a tricky situation, hey? Flip, you dived into a lot of stuff there, Candice. Like, flip. One thing that you did mention, I'm trying to remember, you said something about the woman wanting to better herself for her man. Would you say that that's like a common perception amongst women, that when they're in a relationship, they want to be good for their man? Because the way that I see it is that as human beings, we should want to be good for ourselves before anyone else. And you being good for yourself should be more important than what anyone else thinks. And if you want to be good for someone else, it needs to run in parallel with you being good for yourself, you know? So I don't know, what do you think about that statement?
I feel there is some truth to that. I mean, if you look at the pressure that we as women go through when we turn 30 and we're single and we haven't met someone, we don't have children, you know, there's that pressure that we have to be in association with a man. And if things like he's abusing me is presented to the family, then the question's always asked on what is it that you did for him to hit you and abuse you. So there's so much responsibility and onus that's always being put on women. And I think it's so unfair because it never takes the responsibility and accountability to be put on men to be like, but why are you hitting her? Why are you doing this? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's also important to go into like the dude, what's going on in the dude's mind, right? So like, why is he hitting, and what has he gone through to get him to the point where he feels like that's okay? Because in my mind, if you hurt other people, majority of the time why you hurting them is because you've been hurt yourself, right? And that you've identified that as being the solution to certain like problems that you face. So like, for example, if your girlfriend or your significant other is doing something that holds you back or whatever, they may have experienced the situation where they've done something that's hold like maybe their father back, and their father's solution to that was to hit them. And then now they're just perpetuating that kind of way of handling things onto the person that they with, or they viewed their father hit their mother when their mother did the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, I don't know what the solution to all of the stuff is. You guys are very quiet, by the way. I'm calling you out on that.
I actually would like to say something on that. I think that goes back to what you were saying about how guys are raised or to believe what makes me a man. And then you said the thing about some guys think that they're not allowed to cry or they can't talk about their feelings, and so they keep it all inside. And that leads to them one day using it against women, like being violent against women. I went through something similar recently, and that actually even goes back to the culture thing, where I grew up in an Afrikaans family. So, you know, like there's that whole perception of, a boer is regte man, like, so, you know, and then also basically, you know, guys are raised that when their dads aren't home, they have to be the man of the house.
Yeah.
And I definitely think, like, for Afrikaans guys, it is a common thing to kind of, you know, like, feel like you own your wife or your whoever. And, like, I just think that with the whole, like, guys can't talk about their feelings and stuff, I think if we change that part where guys become comfortable with saying, well, this actually does hurt me, because I've seen a lot of guys, like, who have really been hurt, and it's easy to forget that guys also actually have feelings. So, like, I just think that if we can change that and have guys actually come forward in the same way where we come forward with things that have happened to us and then we get told that we're lying, or it's not that bad, or guys should be able to come forward with their feelings and not have to feel like we're going to, you know, judge them for it.
Yeah.
And I think, that could make a huge change, because then they could get help to fix what is hurting them.
Yeah, I think men
there's a lot of
need,
pressure on men.
Yeah, I feel like men need what's this? Not like men anonymous sessions where you go, hi, my name is hi. And
then just hunting trips.
Yeah, like they just speak, and it's a weekly thing where every week the guys come and they speak and they really just unpack, like, what is it about this crisis of like identity? Why is it, just really talk about that. But, I think it will be difficult to then call on all men to do it, because some men are like really arrogant and ignorant and don't find any fault in their ways. And then there's some who are willing to relearn and unlearn, and I think, do we have space for cancelled gents to unlearn and relearn? I don't know.
Yeah, so... Talking about cancelling, right? We were talking about that before the podcast as well. Do you guys feel like that's... I don't know if you're familiar with cancel culture.
Yeah, a little bit I am.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys... So basically, cancel culture is if someone... I don't know, this is my interpretation of it. You guys can tell me if you disagree with it. But it seems to me that cancel culture seems to be a culture of where if someone gets accused for something, I feel like a lot of the time when someone gets accused of something, there's no real, like something with rape, for example, rape is a very touchy, tricky subject to look at from an outsider's perspective, because ultimately at the end of the day, most of the time, the only people that actually know the true reality of the situation are the ones that are involved. And that's like the man and the female, or could be man and man, or female, but you know what I'm saying, right? So I think... Yeah, it's tricky, because I think a lot of the time what happens with cancel culture is that someone will be accused of something and people will deduce what their reality is based on what's put out there. And someone can get cancelled for something that they may not have. Like, people will cancel someone even though they don't fully know what actually happened, Yeah. I feel like that's a tricky place to be in, because it can be a very slippery slope. You can start seeing things happen, things such as people using it as like a tool and weaponizing cancel culture to get to people for certain ulterior motives. Do you feel like people do that? Do you think that's a possibility? Do you feel like the benefits of cancel culture outweigh the downsides of it? Should those people who actually didn't do the crimes that got accused, or is that the case? Like, is that actually the case, that people didn't do the crime and now they're being cancelled, now they're having ramifications in their life? Is that, should those people be viewed as like scapegoats or a necessary sacrifice for the people that actually did do stuff? I don't know. It's a very tricky subject.
I feel like, you know, when you have conversations about cancel culture with guys, they get a little bit like scared, because the possibility of them being cancelled is very real, but the possibility of us being killed by men is also very real. You know, so it's one of those things where I find cancel culture very beneficial in having critical conversations around, why is this person being cancelled, right? So it's the thing of like, okay, this person cut shoes because a contract didn't work out, then do we need to cancel the person? It's not, okay, you know, whatever. But if it's a thing of like, okay, a person who was a child molester and did it for over 20 years and had a flourishing career, there's sufficient evidence, people have been on stand, definitely that person is cancelled, right? There's two, I mean, I find cancel culture to be a little bit effective in bringing awareness to certain things, but then it can also be very harmful in that, like you say, people can use it to weaponize. And also, it's not beneficial in that if we decide to cancel an artist, people are still going to go to that person's concert. People are still going to, you know, listen to their music. So what does cancel culture actually look like? Is it tangible? It's just really just jumping on a movement to say we're all canceling him because everyone's canceling the person, right? But I still find that there's benefits to knowing that, okay, I didn't know this artist was like this. Let me really research and investigate and see. And it probably inspires others to then say, oh, this person went through this. I can maybe speak on my experiences as well. So it's kind of like a pros and cons, double-edged sword. Yeah.
So in your mind, it can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a tool.
I don't know if like when it does its good counterparts, it's still called cancel culture, you know? I feel like it's only cancel culture if it does everything that we view as negatively about cancel culture. That's what cancel culture is, like, holistically. You know, I was speaking to you earlier this week and I used the analogy of like a gun, for example. You know, whenever a gun is introduced into a situation, you know something is getting killed. Like, you know, there's nothing else a gun could do. Versus like a knife, which I would then, you know, attribute to like the law, or, you know, for example, where it could be used positively or negatively. And I think when cancel culture does, you know, the good counterpart of what it's, you know, identified for, in like bringing awareness to a situation or something that happened that maybe someone did something that kind of just flew under the radar, and then, you know, someone was articulate enough to be like, oh, you know, no, what's this about, you know, and kind of brings awareness to that. That's not cancel culture. I wouldn't call that cancel culture. That's kind of just like bringing awareness, you know. But once it gets into that territory of like just bashing this, like assassinating this person's character, you know what I'm saying, then it becomes like malicious and everything. That's when it becomes cancel culture, which I don't agree with. I don't agree with the whole concept of cancel culture, purely because it's just people like taking out their emotions on someone. Most of them don't even know what's happening with the situation. And like most of the time it's based on like stuff that was done way back. Okay, some stuff is like not forgivable. Like if you killed someone like 30 years ago and you just never got caught, but you got caught today, you should still go to jail for that, you know. Same thing with rape. But if you're going to make like a racist joke, which back then, by the way, was okay, you know what I'm saying? I think we're all guilty of making like more edgier jokes back then than we, you know, make jokes today.
Yeah.
And someone picks up from like your tweet in 2013, for example, and decides to, you know, come after your whole career off of that. Then I'm like, you know, come on. You know, then that's cancel culture, and like that's what I don't agree with.
I think like in relation to gender-based violence and rape, I think cancel culture does definitely have its benefits. But my question is, how do we see it work? So, for example, if we say, okay, yes, Java did what he did, and I believe Lady Zama, And my thing is like, okay, I unfollow him on Apple Music. I don't go to his concerts. I unfollow and block on Instagram. He's still going to flourish as an artist, right? But then you see a lot of people on Twitter will be like, yeah, cancel him. But they still support his music. So what is cancel culture really
doing?
like?
Yeah.
You know? And I get people say, no, but you can't separate the person from the art. And I'm like, but he used his power in his art to manipulate and abuse people. So to me, it's still the same thing, you know? So it's
I think there's a bigger problem at hand. I think cancel culture is a culmination of what's been going on in our country in terms of like the legal system and how the legal system handles these situations like rape and abuse and whatnot. I'm under the impression that a lot of the rape cases that get brought forward don't result in any sort of action. And I think that's one of the reasons why cancel culture is so prominent today, is because people feel like when the government doesn't pull through for people, that's when you start getting vigilantes and people out there, and you start seeing more mob justice, you know? And I see cancel culture as being the internet version of like mob justice or vigilantes going out there and coming for people that they feel like the government has not prosecuted or taken action against. And I feel like a lot of these issues could be solved if we found a way to actually get the government to take action against these criminals that have committed rape and committed abuse against women. And I feel like if we solve that, that will eradicate things like people getting cancelled for being accused of rape.
I hear you. You know, I've gotten to a point now where I'm just really tired of like saying government needs to do this.
That's the thing.
Needs to do that.
We always say
because
that.
every time I feel like our government's very reactive. So if they see things are trending on Twitter, things are going crazy, let's react to it. If we had a proactive government, we'd definitely be having more programs that are centered around dealing with gender-based violence on a more grassroots development level. So, you know, there have been studies that have been shown in, I think it's Ghana and Nigeria, where they actually have workshops for young kids and their perspectives on like consent and rape. And as they grow up, you see the cases of gender-based violence and rape go down. So if we had a proactive government, they would be doing these grassroots development programs for younger kids so that the rates of gender-based violence and rape go down, right? If we had a proactive government, we would have a president who, whenever an incident of gender-based violence occurs, will have harsh action on any form of police member who turned away the rape victim when they came to the police station, or any form of harsh action towards the perpetrator, right? We would have a more proactive government if they took it seriously to say our women and children are dying versus just it being a very tangible thing. And I see this every time when our president does these addresses. It honestly comes like, okay, yeah, we acknowledge, you know, men need to do better, and there's always money, but it's like, we're still dying, you know?
Where's the action?
Where's the action? And it's so,
I feel like there's a lot of sides to this. Like, you know, targeting the government is only, I feel like, even a smaller aspect of the larger problem, because I feel like what contributes largely to how men and women view each other and view themselves in society is media, because that's majority of what we grow up with. You know what I'm saying? Like, people will listen to the celebrity on TV before they listen to their parents. You know what I'm saying? And with specifically rap music being very prominent, I think it's, you know, I'm not wrong to say that it's the most popular genre of music, you know, and you just listen to the stuff that they promote constantly. You know what I'm saying? I don't even have to, you know, go into detail. You know, more than just music, like even the, you know, stuff that we watch, pornography, for example, you know what I mean? That contributes, you know, for example, with there not being like any, you know, I don't know if it's just in our school that didn't do any like sex ed, you know, thingy lessons, or if it's just schools in general, they kind of like did away with that for some reason. But as a result, like people are only learning about sex through like pornography, you know what I'm saying? And it's been proven time and time again that is a very unrealistic way to look at, you know, that type of engagement between like a man and woman specifically, you know, where they promote these undertones of like these like very rapey, you know, vibes and everything. You just like see by the titles of the like these videos and like the tags and all of that, you know, that a kid is going to grow up watching that stuff thinking that, okay, this is, what, will arouse my partner, what I'm getting taught to be aroused by, you know what I'm saying? And then you go and take that into the real world, and then, you encounter someone that's like, no, but even though in the video the person said no, and then the person like persisted, it ended up working out in both of their favor. So in real life, the person will persist as well, you know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing with music as well, for example, like just like a whole lot of nudity from both sides. This is what success looks like, you know what I'm saying? And then it just feeds into the whole objectification thing, which brings me to a question.
Wet ass pussy.
For example.
Yeah. Because like I want to get your guys' opinion on that song. I don't know. Do you know the song by any chance?
I don't, actually.
It's a song by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah.
And it's called Wet Ass Pussy, where essentially the entire song they rap about their wet ass pussies.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't mind the song. I love the song.
I think it's a dope song. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I heard it and I was like,
all these counter arguments and hadibaloo are coming from men who are uncomfortable with the idea that women are in control of their bodies, right? So the notion that Thulie speaks about all these rap videos and all that jazz of what success looks like, it's because men are essentially saying, I'm in control of your body, so I want you to twerk for me. But if you have two prominent female rappers who are saying, this is my body, this is how I like it, that is opening up another door of conversation to sex positivity, right? It's not only about my partner's pleasure, it's about mine as well. And with women's bodies in particular, it's always an association with the man. So, the fact that they mention WAP means that you're I don't know, guys. I love it. I really do love it, right?
Here's my thing, right?
I get that, people be like, yeah, but what perspectives or perceptions or examples are they giving for younger girls? And I'm like, they're giving the option for younger girls to say, this is what I like about my body, not what you like about my body. I want to be in control of my body. I feel it's just another form of liberation and autonomy and agency that we don't give women. And so when women decide to sing a song about WAP, it's like, oh my gosh, no, what are they doing? But men have been doing it for centuries, where you can be on rap videos and just, I don't know. Yeah.
Like, my whole thing is that I don't, from like an objective perspective, like I don't have a problem with, especially, women doing that.
Yeah.
That's not where my argument, lies. It's with the dudes doing that, you know what I'm saying? Like in their music videos, you know what I'm saying? Because like when a woman does it, it kind of, it gives off that, this is how confident I am about myself type of energy, which is good, you know what I'm saying? But then my question is, where does it become like, female empowerment? Where's the line drawn between female empowerment and female objectification? Because objectification kind of feeds back into the main issue, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody's going to look at that video, you know what I'm saying? And there's going to be a large majority, especially the impressionable people, that are going to look at that and be like, damn, this is how I have to look like to, that type of thing.
Not even that. Like, I feel like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, they're not talking about like how ambitious they are, and they're not talking about like how smart they are. They're talking about my like genitals, like my ass, my genitals, blah, blah, blah. But I think what's more important is what's up in here, like what's in your head, right?
Yeah.
So, but then again, I'm also like, I'm comparing, because something that you made me think about from what you said was that you don't get guys rapping about their dicks. You get guys rapping about women's body parts, but you don't really get them rapping about their own.
You do.
Oh, do you?
Ooh.
All of them.
What?
No, I've never heard.
I'm sorry.
Do you have an example?
That every single
DOD
rapper
does do that.
Like every single rapper is perceived to have like a huge
But then
dick.
it's always an association of what it can do to a woman. Never like, I'm just flaunting that I have 30 centimeters.
But then again, the wet ass pussy is also doing the same thing, what it can do to men, is it not?
Yeah, it is, but in a positive way. I think there's a difference, right? Where it's like the phallus in this perspective of rap videos is like, I've got a big dick and I'm gonna, But with WAP, it's like, guys, so okay, this is also with education that I do with young girls. we can barely even say the word vagina without feeling like ashamed and scared, right? So having a song called Wet Ass Pussy means that you can feel liberated about a body part that is a part of you. And that means that you can decide and dictate to your own terms what you wanted to do. I think what you're mentioning about how with the men in rap videos, it's always just a thing of like, this expectation that I have to always have hands on me and I always have to like... There's the objectification, right? But with WAP, it's like, this is mine. I own it. I want to be proud about it. Like, it's a part of me. You can't ignore the fact that you have a vagina. Like, why should I only remember it because a man wants it? Why should I remember it because I'm menstruating? Why should I remember it because... it's like, nah, remember it because it's yours. So it's that association of owning your body, which is a bigger part of, like, woman empowerment.
But is it women empowerment? Because when I heard that song... To me, it seemed like that song was kind of geared towards guys, because a lot of the lyrics was, this is what I can do to you. This is why you should give me your money. It's the exact opposite in terms of gender as to what guys do.
But there's agency in that, right? So remember that for women empowerment, it's not always about being modest. So for me, I can feel empowered when I'm wearing my jeans and my top. For another woman, empowerment is for her wearing her shorts and her crop top. There's agency in that, right? So in as much as I can say, look, I won't be like Cardi and Megan and bust it down, Thulie, I can't. But I can understand how that song is normalizing things that have been seen as Jezebel. There's those negative connotations of like, you're a Jezebel, you're a hoe, huh? But they're necessarily normalizing it to say, guys, you've been doing it, so let's normalize it. Let's make it positive. Let's, for the girls that want to do it. It's okay. And it's giving them that agency to say you don't always have to be the modest, shy girl that wears skirts that go longer than her knees. Do what you want to do.
So Suné, I know that you are on OnlyFans, right?
Yes.
Just about
so
to bring that up.
just referring to like... Just referring to what Candice is saying, do you feel like OnlyFans gives you that sense of agency as well?
I think not really so much the site itself, but the fact that there are people on there who do support the kind of work that I do. That's, yeah. But no, I wouldn't say like the site itself. Like, I don't like the site so much, because on that site, people really do just go there for one thing, whereas I'm only on there to promote my nude modeling, because like I can't do that on Instagram or Facebook because I'll get banned.
Yeah.
So in terms of being a platform where I can share my work, and then hopefully the people who do subscribe are doing so just because they kind of support my work, but not in terms of like just the site itself being a platform to share the work, no.
Okay.
Yeah, because like for me, I go through this whole big thing where, like what you said with the Jezebel and because I'm a nude model, and literally for me it is just embracing my body. And why should I have to be like ashamed of anything on my body if I'm comfortable? And it has nothing to do about size or about, I have tattoos and you don't, or, my boobs are bigger than hers.
Yeah.
Or it has nothing to do about that. It's just embracing what you've been given and being grateful for it. And that's what I'm trying to do with the nude modeling thing, is to show women that that's okay, and you don't have to be ashamed, and you shouldn't be scared to be objectified. And I still guys slide into my DM like it's nobody's business because of the type of modeling I do. And there's this association with, if you're okay with posing naked, then you're okay with me, being like, hey, sexy, send me nudes. Or, and for me, it's kind of getting women to see that you can do these things, you can pose nude, and you don't have to take it when guys do that.
Yeah.
You can still be a lady and embrace your body at the same time.
See, that's the key word of the day, agency, right? So there's that assumption that if I want to be empowered for my own purposes with my own body, then it means now it's for your own benefit. Like,
Yeah,
sure,
and it's nothing to do
enjoy
with you.
liking the pictures, supporting me, send me that coin. It's okay, right? But there comes a line when you start dictating to me what I should do with my body, and that's why I appreciate the fact that you do have body positive models who can, okay, this is my body, this is what I offer, this is what I'm happy to do, this is what I'm happy to proclaim, and that's it. There's no other person that's involved other than myself. And I think that's why when I think of WAP, I think, okay, the song is saying, yes, this is what it's for, this is what it's meant for, but it's also yours at the end of the day. You know, because again, our bodies have always been an association for pleasure, for the other, but never for ourselves. So it's reclaiming our bodies, which is so important.
Okay. So basically, agency is prioritized over objectification.
All the time, it should be.
Yeah.
But now you get people thinking that objectification is okay because of the pop culture that we consume, because of the content we consume. So it's always important that we're always having these conversations about my body is mine, my body's not meant for you. It's unless you ask for it and I say yes, you know? It's so important having these conversations about understanding that my body's not just an object for your pleasure. I am a human being at the end of the day. I do have feelings. So if I decide that, no, I don't want it, I'm not into it, like, let me just flaunt whatever I want to flaunt without you having to like provoke me, then respect that, you know? Yeah.
Nice.
What do you guys feel about the term insta-ho?
That's a term.
Insta-ho. What is an
Instagram.
insta-ho?
I'm an Insta-ho.
Instagram. Would you say that?
I'm an insta-ho for periods.
Okay.
I
like
mean-
in the description of girls that pose nude on not just Instagram, but I guess social media, but just Instagram, because Instagram is the most prominent, so that it gets the prefix. Yeah, because for me, like, I've tried to look at I don't think there's a dictionary definition, but I've tried to define it as, objectively as possible, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, where does one draw the line for where someone is kind of being, okay, I think the overall question is, do you guys find it okay to act what society calls hoey?
If that's
I
what
think-
floats your boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what Candice was talking about with agency. It's like, you get to decide what you do with your body. If you want to go out there and take a photo of your body naked and put it out there, you should be allowed to do that. You shouldn't have anyone.
It shouldn't be
It shouldn't be men or women that tell you what you should or shouldn't do with your body. But what I think you're bringing up is that a lot of the time, is that men kind of feel the need to tell you what to do with your body.
Exactly.
And that's why it's important for us as men to be like, no, we don't have the right to tell anyone, whether it's a man or female, what to do with their body. And I think it also applies with like if there's a dude out there that decides to go and like take naked pictures or pictures in underwear or whatever, like, just as much as I don't have the right to go and tell him what to do, I also don't have the right to go tell the woman who's doing something similar to do what to do. I think it's for everyone. But what we've seen is that we have a culture of men who feel like they're entitled to be able to tell women what they can and cannot do with their bodies. And that's inhibiting on that person's agency and that woman's agency. And Candice feels like WAP helps women overcome that.
Yeah,
and helps.
other songs, like, I mean, if you think of like the works of Beyonce, the works of Lizzo, they are honestly just saying like, it's just really women empowerment in that for decades and decades and decades, our body has always been in regulation of men. Like, even if you think of it from a sexual and reproductive health point of view, birth control, tampons, these were things that were created by men to say, regulate your body because this is what we perceive to be good for you. Never asking like, what do you want, right? So as societies progress, we're actually realizing, I know what's good for me and I don't need you to tell me. I know what's good for my body because it's my body, right? I'm the person who spends the most time with my body. So I'm not going to have some man tell me, no, don't get a WAP. Don't do that. I like it dry. No, sir. I like it wet. So it's so important just to have that conversation of agency. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I want to ask a question now. you mentioned patriarchy and culture in the beginning of this chat. How do you guys feel about Christianity playing a huge role in that? If I was to say that it's kind of contradictory to, be a feminist and be a Christian at the same time, would you guys say I'm wrong?
We actually all come from a Christian
Christian school.
background.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think I need tea for this discussion.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
So I firstly, my just opinion on that is being a Christian has got nothing to do with having a relationship with God, because I still have a relationship with God, but I don't believe in religion.
Makes sense.
And so I think organized religions, they are also, again, it comes back to telling people what to do. Like if you do that, then you're not a Christian. If you do that, God's not going to love you. And that's also a form of abuse, I think. Because why do I have to go to church every Sunday for God to love me? Because then he's telling me what to do. And for me, it's just, I've been in a lot of situations where I have literally just prayed to God on my knees in my darkest moments and not in church. That's not when I feel closest to God, when I'm in church singing and praising and listening to some dude read the Bible out loud. No. In my darkest moments, that's when I feel close to him. And so I just don't even do the whole religion topic. But I think for me, my only opinion is that, Christians use the same kind of, they use fear to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And
I think it spans through all religions, really, not just Christian.
no, just all of.
But listen to the pronouns that you use when you say you pray to God, like the whole him, he, type of thing.
Yeah. I prefer to say the universe, but
Yeah.
Yeah, why do we, assume a gender on this, higher power? You know what I'm saying? I had a conversation with, I was more observing a conversation between a friend of mine and someone else who is a staunch Christian. And my friend knew that this person was a really staunch Christian. And then this person asked my friend, did you take my advice? Did you go and pray? How was your experience with God and everything? And then my friend's experience was she was really cool. And that bothered this dude so much.
Damn.
I'm going to start doing that.
Literally, that's my question. Why do we assume that, if you put, whichever gender title on God, that, you're in the wrong? It's blasphemous.
Yeah. I think it's because, religious leadership is majority patriarchy. It's mostly led by men. So the assumption is that, God would be a man. But stemming from my own personal experience, I think part of the reason why I became a feminist was I was trying to rebel, and also reading the text in which certain things of how the man is the head of the household, women need to be always submissive. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that, So I came from a Catholic high school, and we also had these conversations about Christianity and, God-hating gay people, Christianity, and would there ever be women pastors? And, let me just say my experience from that.
Sounds like you've been through a lot.
There is that thing of fear, that if you tend to not... If you don't agree, then this is what's going to happen to you. This is it's either A or hell. That's basically it, right? And I think there's not enough form of room for space and dialogue, and especially in terms of identity, to say, listen, as much as I can be very spiritual and I can agree that there is a higher being, I just feel that my God personally would not hate on gay people. I feel that homophobia shouldn't even have a place in any form of religion. It's a form of hate. Surely that's not okay, right? And
Isn't it that if God is an all-loving God, then he shouldn't actually be hating on
anyone?
Exactly.
Yet alone for who they love.
Exactly.
But
so yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that topic is going a lot into religion and moving a little bit away from femicide and gender-based violence.
I think it still contributes, because you could just put that into the category of culture, because Religion is
Yeah.
intrinsic into a lot of cultures. You know, it's almost synonymous with each other.
Okay,
The
we're gonna
words.
go down the
No.
religion
I just
rabbit
wanted
hole.
to.
Like,
I just wanted to bring that up because that's a huge can of worms and discussion that could never end. I just wanted to bring that up specifically. So I pulled out a graph here that I've had open for some time now.
It's a
thinking,
pyramid scheme.
This is where it happens, guys.
Yeah, graphs.
Well, okay, it's not the exact graph, but what this report that I'm reading here says that globally that men are killed more than women, and South Africa as well.
What?
So, yeah, that's what it says.
Which report is this?
It is go back
Pyramid
to the top.
scheme.
you have to back this stuff up.
Crime
now.
against women in South Africa.
Stats SA.
Statistics South Africa.
Which year was this?
20, if I'm not mistaken, I saw it 2018. Yeah.
Because then you still have
Yes.
reports of like different international organizations saying that South Africa has the highest femicide rate in the world.
Femicide, you're right. Yes, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
So are they saying that men are dying at the hands of themselves, or they're dying because of suicide? What
I
is
think it just
the-
factors like all the reasons, like all
Like death in general.
More tombstones in South Africa have male names on it. Let's just say that.
Then again, I think what is valid is like how they died. I mean, that's an important point because I do know that there's a big problem with like suicide amongst men, but I think there's also there might be other reasons.
I
why
just
it's
think the
mainly men.
reason why we've got the highest statistic is because the rate at which women are dying at the hands of men is something that should be considered a crisis, right? So in as much as you can say natural causes, accidents, 100 ways to die, whatever, it's the specific the cause of death is that it was femicide, shot to, stabbed, raped, and that's the most painful part of it. And in as much as Stats South Africa is a very credible source, I think that if we're having other international organizations like the UN that constantly does research on the ground to say this is what's happening and then categorize South Africa as the highest femicide rate in the world, then it's like, whoa, something isn't right. And also we need to take into consideration from a statistic point of view that when you do report, are these reported cases as well of because also there's a lack of reported cases. Most of the time victims don't even go to report. They deal with that anxiety on their own, and sometimes they actually do end up killing themselves as a result of the abuse and trauma they faced. So it's hard to process trace all of those things. I get, but yeah.
Because I mean, like a homicide, there's nothing that needs to be debated. Like if it's a homicide, that person is that person's dead. You know what I'm saying? So that's a stat that you can record, and I think that's what these graphs are focusing specifically, not really on like ongoing cases and like So I think this is just like the end result.
I hear you, but I also think like when I also think of like the state of reports and just the process of like, writing things down, and you have a victim who is really shaken and they have to go through this process of constantly telling their story. And then there's that question of doubt to say, are you sure this happened? I don't know how to like, yeah.
I actually want to ask you guys a question. So we've been talking a lot about like gender-based violence against women, and I know that it's Women's Month and everything, but what are your guys' opinions on, because there is a lot of, I've seen it myself, violence from women against men, where it's literally the other way around in a relationship and the woman is beating on the man, or she is emotionally manipulating the man. And then if a man had to go, so like for a woman, it's already scary to come forward with that. But what about men? Like where do they stand in terms of this? And what do they do? And is it embarrassing for a man to go to a family member or a police station and say, well, she's hitting me, or she stabbed me, or, she hit me with her car, but I'm still staying with her because no one's going to believe me. Or if I come forward, then I'm not a man.
Yeah, I think that rape and abuse culture does apply to both parties, and probably even worse for men, because it's like, wait, so you're applying for a rape case and this is what happened, but there's always
You're
some
a dude. You're expected to be the one who's doing the raping, not being raped.
That toxic masculinity being pushed onto man to be like, oh yeah, no, get over it. It's your woman, control her. There is that form of toxicity that breeds out of it, and I think we're not having enough conversations around male victims as well. In particular, of the abuse that they experience, even from young ages. Like young boys experience severe forms of like child
pressure
abuse, and
pressure
it's just
and being
that
a man.
You can't be vulnerable from that time on. And so who are you to say my woman's doing this, my woman's doing that, when you've been told from a young age, don't show any form of vulnerability, don't show any form of feeling, man up, literally. It's scary.
I think society has put a huge responsibility on men to be leaders and to be the ones that are at the forefront and make things happen, and I think that's one of the reasons why we have such a high suicide rate for men, is because there's a huge expectation on them. So if you don't meet that expectation, it's you feel very ostracized. And a lot of men, when they don't, because it's not possible for all of us to meet that expectation, and it also depends on what kind of expectation the people around you expect from you. So I mean, being a man, you might find that you might marry a woman and the woman's expecting you to provide, and then you might be in a situation where you get retrenched, for example.
Yeah.
Because, and that could come from like the Bible, right? It's like you're the leader of the household.
Yeah.
But not only that, I think in general, in culture, I feel like men are expected to provide. I don't even think it's specific to religion. And when you are a man who can't do that, a lot of the time it results in like depression. It results in like you taking it out on your wife and you being like, okay, my wife expects me to provide and I'm not providing. So I need to, like, I don't know, some men will get angry at that thought. And because now in their eyes, they're not a man, because of that expectation that's been set by society. So I think this whole thing of like having expectations on certain genders can be a dangerous thing to have, because now you have an expectation on men to be sole providers and to be the ones that are the breadwinner and doing work, and that's not necessarily the case for every man. I mean, I think it's perfectly okay for a man to be a house husband, and have his wife go out and work and be the
one of my
provides,
friends' Twitter bios is actually future stay-at-home dad, and I'm like, yes, accept that. Like there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's constantly relearning and unlearning and reworking the stereotypes that are given to us from a young age to say, this is what you're meant to do, this is what you're meant to do, this is what you're meant to do. Because that amount of expectation and pressure to, if you don't live up to it, can be so crushing. So I think like I said earlier, like there is definitely a crisis identity that men are going through, in which they're trying to navigate, trying to find themselves also through all these expectations and things they are meant to do. And it's deep. I have a question for this. Yeah, right. What does do better gents mean? Is it just like a tagline, a motto that all gents just like saying for the sake of it, or like?
This goes into like the whole like social media activism thing. Like I think just posting a hashtag do better gents doesn't do anything.
Because y'all said that last year when your Nene passed away, and now it's again do better gents. And it's like, well, if you did better, we wouldn't be in this case, right?
True, but I do think it does take change. Like it takes time to change those things. I feel like we're talking about a cultural shift. I don't think that happens overnight. I think it needs to be a consistent thing that people are fighting towards and working towards over a period of time until we start seeing change. And you're right, change is not happening quick enough. You can't, like saying that it takes long to change culture, which means it's okay that there's still the stuff going on today, is not an okay thing to do. But I think realistically speaking, it will take time for us as men to be able to adjust the culture, but it's a matter of like consistently doing that and going out of your way to make that happen, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation today, is it's one of those steps that we're trying to take to make that happen. And we need to constantly be taking active steps as men to be doing that. And I think from this discussion, another step that we need to take is I think we need to have a podcast that's just gents, just gents talking about what it means to be a man, because I think that whole it's like things are shifting. The expectations of what's expected from our genders is all shifting. I mean, previously, back in the past, it was like, if you're a man, you're expected to do this, even to the point where it was like, it happened in careers. The expectation happened in careers. If you're a man, you could be a policeman, you could be a doctor, you could be this, you could be that. If you're a woman, you could be a nurse, you could be this, you could be that. So it's like, that stuff is like all shifting, and now we're in the process of dealing with that stuff. So it's like, how do we reform these expectations? How do we, and I think we shouldn't view it as like a thing that will reach an endpoint. Like, and this is, I think, what you were touching on as well, Candice, is that it's always going to be constantly evolving. The expectation is always going to be constantly evolving. But yeah, sorry, what was your question again?
What does do better gents mean?
What does do better gents mean? I think it's a call to action. Whether people actually do get called to action or not is up to them. But I think it is a call to action to be like, gents, we need to find ways to actually like change the stuff, you know?
Again, an awareness thing.
Yeah.
I don't think though that, you know, these hashtags really do much, you know, like outside of, you know, just sharing awareness. You know what I'm saying? Which, I mean, in that regard, they do have their place to play. But a lot of people feel that just sharing a hashtag is enough. I've done my part. You know what I'm saying?
Be like, yeah, you see, it's not me. I'm not one of them.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, like to be, you know, to put it bluntly, you've done nothing. You know what I'm saying? Apart from just, you know, sharing a hashtag. But then, like I said, as far as like awareness goes, you've done, but that doesn't really do anything because you're, you know, shedding light on a problem that roundabout everybody, you know, already knows exists. It's like you need to take that extra step. And like before we pressed play and we had like the chat that I had to like stop.
Yeah.
You asked us, you know, why did we decide to start the podcast? One of the main reasons as well was because we just felt that it wasn't enough just to say stuff and like share a hashtag on like these social medias. You know, we wanted to actually do something actively, you know, that we could point at the end of the day and you see, be like, that result over there, we did that. But not in a sense of like pride, but just to say that, we did something tangible, you know what I'm saying?
It's required, dude. At this day and age, it's required. That's what we need.
Yeah.
You know, like where you go is to like you dig into like, you know, cultural and social norms of in a marriage you have to take the man's surname, for example. You know what I mean? Like I think I used this example in the conversation that we like no one's gonna hear because we forgot to hit record. did we hit record, dude? Fam.
Ish. Nah, did we?
Oh God, I was just like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, like I made the example of my previous girlfriend. Like she like was kind of big on the whole thing of like not agreeing on like the patriarchal nature of the Bible. And when we kind of had the discussion of like if we were to get to that point of marriage and you know we have to get to the point of sharing surnames, I was just like, we can even use your surname if you want, or we can have both of them, like, you know, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West.
Yeah.
And then like my even immediate friendship group was like, dude, what the hell? Like,
Yeah, what are you doing?
You know, like
Yeah.
that's not how it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? So I found it quite fascinating, really, that even though you think that you get into the gist of the problem, like the crux of what's going on, there's like so much that needs to be dealt with. That's like root causes of problems. You know what I'm saying? That's why I made the statement to say that, you know, just going after the government, that's like, you know, they're like more at the top, you know, type of thing, because you can, you know, get the government to make all of these changes. But the reason why there are laws put in place in like all like societies across the globe is because people have that thing in them that, you know, has them breaking the law. Like if nobody ever was killing anybody ever, there wouldn't be a law against murder, you know, for example. So it kind of goes into like what, you know, drives people to get to that point where they feel that doing something that harms somebody else is okay. You know what I'm saying? And that's what needs to be dealt with. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, the government's problems are our problems. Like, if the government's not going to step in and solve them, then we're the ones left to solve the problems. We need to figure out ways to do that, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this has been a good discussion, guys. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to come out and chat with us.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like we opened up the door to more discussions, definitely. I feel like there's so much more we can talk about in this topic.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to talk so much more about this topic. So definitely, I don't know if you guys would be keen to come back, but I think we can definitely do another episode. also need to have that episode with just gents chatting about what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
I think that's something that was highlighted by Candice, which I agree with. I mean, literally, I was trying to answer that question. I had to think about it a bit, because it's a difficult question to answer, But I think we all need to identify what it means for us to be men and live that out in our lives, and make sure that we hold other guys accountable. But also, I think it's important that we, as a whole, identify what it means to be a man. Just because I did this to you once on another podcast, you're coming back for me now. I see you. You better not mess up ever again, bro. But yeah, again, thank you guys for coming through. Hey, I don't know if you guys...
Can I just ask one thing?
Sure.
I see Umusa's in the chat. I don't know if she wants to ask anything. Disclaimer, that's my mother, by the way.
Oh, wow, okay.
She's listening live. I don't know if can she hear us? I'm talking and I'm not seeing your thing moving.
Nah, she can.
She can, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't know if she has a question.
Should be able to.
Actually, maybe wants to type out or an opinion. But yeah, just wanted to ask that and you guys can continue.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you guys if you have any social media that you'd like to plug, anything else you'd like to plug. Now's your opportunity to do so.
Yeah, people can follow me on Instagrizzle and Twitter at Candice_Chirwa. And yeah, I mean, I also do two podcasts on Perils of Patriarchy and What the Relationship. So they can follow me from my main page and engage on that content there.
Awesome.
Yeah. My biggest one is Instagram, Selfie Queen SA. And then go subscribe to my OnlyFans because I need to pay rent.
Yeah.
Nice.
Shout out, get the bag.
Right?
All right, cool. I see there's no message or no question here from Auntie Musa. Can we end the podcast?
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for coming through and listening with us. Really appreciate you taking the time. And also, if you feel like you disagree with anything that was said in this podcast, if you feel like we have any faulty opinions, please call us out on it. We want to know what you think. And also, let's join the conversation. Let's chat about this offline and start talking about what other solutions may we have missed in this podcast. What kind of topics did we not discuss that are important and need to be spoken about? Mention them down below, and then also please take the time to go to our Instagram. You can follow me at I am Josh Dillon. Tools, do you want to plug yourself?
No.
Yeah, Tools is already too famous. And then also check us out on Twitter at The Bridging Pod. And yeah, please feel free to join the Discord. That's where we are trying to get people to contribute in the conversation and participate in the chat. And yeah, if you listen live, you're also enabled to send your questions through and participate in the conversation. So please make sure you take the time to go through to the Discord. And yeah, that's it. Episode what? I don't even know which episode we're on anymore.
The episode where you didn't forget to record.
Yes.
Yeah, thank
That's
God.
very important. Good on visuals, good on audio.